Hi, my name's Ryan Evans, and you're listening to Horns of a Dilemma. I'm the publisher of a new journal I hope you're reading called the Texas National Security Review that we at War on the Rocks produce with the University of Texas. I think you'll like this new episode. What challenges confront the U.S. intelligence community in the 21st century? There are few better positioned to know the answers to that question than Dan Coates, the Director of National Intelligence. The Intelligence Studies Program, a collaborative initiative of the Strauss Center and the Clements Center down at the University of Texas, recently held a major conference where Coates was the keynote speaker. In this episode, you can listen to his wide-ranging remarks on North Korea, Russia, China, cybersecurity, terrorism, and how the United States is a bit like the New York Yankees. Hear why, for Coates, America's ability to handle these challenges depends on a talented and more capable workforce in the intelligence community, and hear why Coates is treating the reform of the security clearance process in particular as an urgent issue.
We had a wonderful dinner last evening. Admiral McCraven and his wife hosted that. In that dinner were people who have provided service to this country in extraordinary ways. It was all like a Hall of Fame intelligence officers reunion. Several of them are sitting here. I won't start going through all the names because I'm afraid I'll miss somebody, but it's the people that I have had respect for throughout my career in the Senate and in Washington, and particularly now as Director of National Intelligence and looking at the people who have spent their careers providing this nation with the intelligence necessary to keep our people safe. It's extraordinary accomplishments, and they are in this room. And I thank them for laying the path for someone like me who comes out of a policy career into an intelligence career without nearly the experience that they had. But I inherit what they have laid down in a lot of the people that are there that had served for them, and I'm so grateful for that opportunity. Austin obviously was on the minds of everyone just not that many days ago. I was with Director Wray, who was briefing me on that situation and how it came to conclusion. It serves as an example of the kind of information sharing and intelligence efforts that we need working together through the federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies to deal with situations like this. It literally was a surge here of federal, state, and local police that resulted in finally resolving this issue. Condolences obviously go to the victims of that, but it is an example of how we are needing to coordinate our efforts. And that is really the role of the intelligence community. And the Office of Director of National Intelligence is the office that was spun up after 9/11 to accomplish that very goal. And that is to provide that integration of efforts so that we are presenting the full picture. I kind of look at it like it's putting a puzzle together. We have 16 agencies that collect different ways intelligence from foreign entities that want to do us harm. And we try to incorporate all that information that we gather into a picture, a complete picture. Now, some agencies put more pieces of that puzzle than other agencies, but each agency plays a role, whether it's defense intelligence agencies or other agencies that we have from different intelligence groups that we have from other agencies. Each piece is necessary to complete the full puzzle. And that is what we present to the President of the United States and to our policymakers and our national security team so that they have the complete picture as we can put together to provide them the basis on which they then conduct their strategy and put their policy efforts together to address the threats that we have. Now, speaking of threats, I inherited a situation where the level of diversity of threats that has spread around the world has never been greater. The challenge that faces the intelligence community now is global. If you hired a jet to take you around the world and you were required to stop at every place where there is a major conflict in place or about to be in place, you would be making a lot of landings. Because as you go around the globe, we see conflicts, flares burning in virtually every continent in the world. And much of that is directed toward the United States. Nobody likes the New York Yankees. I hope I'm not offending anybody because they always because they were the big guys in the room in baseball. So we're the target. We are the target because we've been trying to do good around the world and insert ourselves into resolving some of these conflicts. But hopefully, what we do is help the American public understand why we're there, why we need to do what we do. And frankly, folks, this is a secrets business. We do have respect, great respect for transparency, great respect for the rights of Americans as guaranteed them by our Constitution, the privacy of Americans, but we also owe them the common defense. We also owe them providing security for their people, for our families, for generations. And many, many sacrifices have been made by many, many people to allow us to keep these privileges available to all of us. But I'm really pleased to be here today to speak to you briefly in terms of how we have structured or plan to structure the agency going forward. I stopped at Baylor on the way down to talk to students and look at their program and do some recruiting. But arriving here in Austin and looking at the program that is put together by Steve Slick's leadership is extraordinary. The way UT has taken on the responsibilities of providing to students the opportunities to be in public service, to look at foreign service, or to look at the intelligence agencies and their interest in joining in public service is one of the main reasons why I wanted to be here. Had a wonderful meeting out at Dell this morning in terms of the relationships between Dell and UT, how Austin has become a go-to place for companies like Dell and others, go-to place for developing young people's skills to provide service to their government in very critical and needed ways. So my kudos to UT and to particularly this program, Steve, for all that you do and all that has been accomplished here and will be accomplished as you continue to expand this program. Had a wonderful time to have lunch with these students here. I always learn more from students, I think, than anybody else. There's no filter in terms of what they want between their thoughts and what they say, and that's very refreshing, and that's what we need. So anyway, now more than ever, because of all these threats, we need a vibrant, dynamic, and creative intelligence community that is adaptive and resourceful and able to detect changing or emerging threats from a variety of actors. And I'd like to talk about just a few of the key threats that we face. The perpetual challenge that we're facing with North Korea, whose WMD program, defiance of the international community, military posturing, cyber activities, and potential for internal instability pose an increasing threat to the United States and our allies, and I think we're all aware of that. Now, while some recent developments offer some glimpse of a positive resolution to the conflict with North Korea, I'm one who believes that we need to be clear-eyed and very sober about the reality of this situation. I've been around long enough to have been in the mix of efforts that have been taking place to address the North Korea race toward nuclearization. Back in '94, there was a framework that was initiated by the Clinton administration, which North Korea had agreed to adhere to. They did not. Those of us that were in the Senate at the time were assured by the administration that we had all the verification programs and devices in place to make sure that they would not breach their agreement. That all failed. It was breached. The promises were broken. Once again, then, starting with the Bush administration and even into the Obama administration, the six-nation talks and the six countries involved over a 6-year period of time ended in dismal failure because, once again, the North Koreans wanted to talk, buy time, but not enforce and not to come to any agreement. So as we enter into this third iteration of dealing with North Korea, I do think eyes wide open, sober understanding of what the reality is, with hopes for the best, but real concerns in terms of whether or not we'll be able to achieve a good resolution to this issue, and North Korea will denuclearize as they said they might want to do. So that's an ongoing challenge. Obviously, we have a challenge with Russia, their recent past, and their continued activity work to undermine Western democracies, including ours, and this brazen use of poison to assassinate or attempt to assassinate a foreign agent of theirs, as well as other violations that they've made to the U.S. Convention on Chemical Weapons, demonstrates a real disregard for life, and we have responded to that. As you all have read and heard, we initiated a significant program in which to send their agents home. We were joined by our Western allies. We were joined by other nations around the world. I think the numbers will continue going forward. The Soviets have retaliated just today by announcing that they would release a equivalent reciprocal number to what we have done. That's to our benefit, because there's a lot more Russians in America than there are Americans in Russia in the intelligence agency. We've also closed a consulate in Seattle. I just heard minutes ago, closed a reciprocal consulate in St. Petersburg for us. But it is an issue that we have to deal with, and it goes to the malign activities of undermining our basic values. And it is, I think, a major step forward for this administration to take this action. It's been under discussion for a long time, but I think it's finally time that we have done that. China continues to be a long-term concern relative to their aggressive reactions in terms of South China Sea and other places, but also their pursuit for gaining footholds in geostrategic places around the world. The One Belt, One Road China policy is targeting very key geopolitical locations around the world, and we see them moving in not only their investments, but also their military capabilities to these places. And that poses a challenge to us in the future in terms of modernization of weapons, nuclear capabilities, and others. Hopefully, relationships can be maintained with China so that we don't become the kind of adversarial position that we have with the North Koreans. Now, I could go on and on about threats around the world. I just presented to the Senate Intelligence Committee and to the public our annual threat assessment. As I said, many spots around the world fall in that category. And one predominant one is the issue of cyber. We have many adversaries there: nation states, non-nation states, criminal organizations, terrorist organizations, and kids in their dorm room who have the capabilities of hacking into a network and networks that provide for our security. This becomes an ever-emerging threat, and much needs to be done, in my opinion, to address that threat in ways that we not only provide good defenses to keep from being our systems intruded upon, but also to respond. That is an ongoing process that I think we're going to have to dedicate a lot of resources and a lot of time to address. And of course, we still have threats from terrorism and from those who want to take us down, but the threats they pose have been transformed by technology. All the threats that I've mentioned and many more have been transformed by technology. And let me give you an example. Think about the Taliban insurgency in Afghanistan. When the Taliban regime was in power in Afghanistan in the 1990s, it was infamous for its draconian then ban on technology like television and radio. You mean you won't even let your people use television and radio, or you won't use television and radio because that doesn't fit your narrative. Today, the Taliban maintains a website and Twitter feed and posts videos of battlefield attacks filmed by their drones. These are technology advances that make threats more potent and much more unpredictable. And these capabilities fall into the hands of a lot of adversaries to the United States that want to take down our financial institutions, our electric supplies, our provisions, and any number of ways in which you can disrupt our way of life. So it is important and imperative that the intelligence committees and the intelligence people need to address these threats, and particularly address threats that are coming to us through electronic transmission. I was in Belgium for a NATO meeting. NATO set up a new intelligence arm, and so the 29 nations of NATO were together. And my Polish counterpart stood up and said, we've been talking about borders. We've been worrying about the borders countries to Russia, and it is a true worry. We need to be sincere about that worry. But he said, there really aren't borders anymore. They're not border countries. Cyber has eliminated borders. If you're a Portuguese, I look at my Portuguese friends, and I look at my Spanish friends. You're on the front line with cyber. You're a long way away from the border, and the way terms used to be evaluated relative to the Russian threat. But right now, you're on the border. We're all on the border. And I think we need to understand that that is true here with the attacks on our private sector, our state and local governments, and the general public. So, given all that, I believe we have no choice but to become more innovative and agile as an intelligence community. So, over this past year, we've taken a comprehensive look at the intelligence community to determine where we need to go in the future if we're going to stay ahead of the game or even keep pace. What range of skills will be needed in the IC workforce? This is the question we're asking. How can we better understand the use of these new technologies? And how can we innovate and benefit from expertise beyond the IC? So we have identified a set of key initiatives for the community to pursue together. And we will start with the workforce because the people of the IC have always been our strength, and a few bad apples have been a real vulnerability. We will focus on how to recruit and develop the right expertise for the future so we have a diverse workforce that includes the skills like data science and all those skills needed now for us to do our work. We need a trusted workforce, which means our security clearance process needs to be more effective and more timely. This is one of our top priorities. We are fully engaged in a total review and makeover of our security clearing process. As Senator Warner mentioned, we want a revolution, not evolution, but a revolution in terms of how we provide security clearances. We are hampered significantly in getting the talent that we need because it takes up to a year or more for young people with the skills needed and the desire to join us to get that security clearance. And it clearly is unacceptable. We can't ask them to wait around, these young kids with unbelievable talents, waiting around 12 to 14 months, working at food outlets to cover their cost until they can get their security clearance to take on a very, very important job. That is something we absolutely have to tackle. We put processes in place to do that, and we're going to achieve a much different look. There is some risk involved, obviously. You need to have the right information to hire the right people, but we surely can find a way to make this process much more efficient. We have identified a set of key initiatives for the community to pursue together, and we will start with that workforce because the people of the IC have always been our strength. And a few bad apples, as I said, have always been a real vulnerability. We're going to focus on how to recruit and develop the right expertise. We need a trusted workforce. We also need to be earlier adapters of technological advances as a source of strength and capability. Our focus on augmenting intelligence through machines will empower our workforce by applying artificial intelligence to our data. And additionally, we will seek partnerships to incorporate private sector capabilities, expertise, and insights. This can be difficult given private sector concerns about working with the intelligence community, but it's absolutely necessary if we are able to achieve what we need to stay ahead of the game. We have to work with the private industry. We're working with a clumsy, bureaucratic government that has to move law through a process that hasn't worked all that well lately in terms of appropriations and authorizations and the way in which we are set for a purpose. But we simply have to find a better way to handle all of that. But in the end, we have to find a way to benefit from cutting-edge technologies and a new private sector that approaches to our challenges. That is why we stop at Dell. That is why we visit Silicon Valley. That is why we look at the private sector in terms of how we can work together. We have to work through the legal process, but we've gotten significant response lately from the private sector saying, yes, we can be of help. We want to be of help. We want to be good citizens. We want to be patriots. We want to do what we can for our country. And we know we have the agility and ability to do things that government simply can't do. And to the extent that we can work together, we're getting very good responses now that we didn't get before relative to our work with the private sector. And finally, we need to recognize the need to make most of our data, which requires modern data management and infrastructure. Every aspect of our mission will benefit from these initiatives, and none more than cyber. And these initiatives need to reach across the intelligence community. They won't look the same in each element, but our goal is that we move collectively toward these goals. And our goal is also there to position the entire community to meet tomorrow's challenge. Now, I believe in practicing what you preach. And so what we have set up is a reform, a transformation of OD&I, to eliminate our duplication, to become much more agile, to have fewer decision points, 4 deputies, a principal deputy, then reporting to the DNI, rather than nearly 24 entities that reported directly to the OD&I in the past. We're simplifying that process and looking toward a more modern management situation. We believe we need to clean our own house before we ask our communities to trust us in taking the lead to helping them do their reforms. Finally, as I told you, we are here to try to let the young people, the next generation, understand there is value in public service. And I've received some wonderful responses back from some really terrific young people that is under Steve's tutelage here relative to their interest. I promised them that it would never be boring. Public service has a purpose that you can't always find in the private sector. I told them they might not be as successful financially, although they will be successful, but maybe not as successful financially as if they went into the private sector. I told them that though when I ask people about public service, saying, you have all these skills, you could do that. Yeah, but I don't have the purpose of getting up every morning and doing something for my country. the purpose of trying to keep Americans safe, the purpose of recognizing that Americans throughout generation after generation after generation have sacrificed for the future of our country. And that is worth more than money. That is worth more than a comfortable lifestyle. That is what has put an awful lot of people in this room, because they have said, yeah, that purpose is worth a lot. And whether you're in uniform or whether you're in a suit and tie or whether you're in a T-shirt these days with blue jeans working for the federal government, it is something well worth doing. And we're reaching out to young people to inspire them to do this. Bottom line is, we need them. These new technologies are more than some in my generation, starting with me, don't have a clue about. I walk into some of these organizations and they give me a brief, and I say, I think I got part of that, but I didn't get it all. And then I see these young people with these extraordinary skills. So we are in a time of generational change. The technology is changing. The young people seem to be attuned to all of this. I walk into my grandson's room. My grandson's there with a computer. He's 5 years old. I say, "Hi, Charlie. How you doing?" Okay. Clicking away on stuff like I can't even get my phone going half the time. So in any event, I want to close here just by saying thank you to you, Steve. Thank you for the program you put together. It has risen to the top. I think the participants in this room show the interest in it and what you've done. Hopefully this can be duplicated around the country. We have a lot to be proud of in this country, and looking to the new generation, which you say, what are they thinking? What are they doing? They're the future, and we're privileged to have them coming along. So it's wonderful to kind of combine what you're doing here with some updates on what's happening around the world. With that, I will close, and I think we're going to sit down and answer some questions.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Horns of a Dilemma. Do not forget to rate us on iTunes. It does make a difference.